Welcome to Orensha Tech. And a little bit ago, I made a video about comparing two JSON files. And I got some feedback on that script. And someone pointed out that it is helpful to include recursion when you're comparing two JSON files, which is pretty common for a JSON file format. So I went ahead and created a new script with recursion, and I also added case sensitivity comparison. And just for the fun of it, I also adjusted the script to be able to run it on CSV files as well. Because really, we have two pieces to this. One is the controller script that is importing the files and turning them into custom PowerShell objects. So really we can choose between JSON or CSV, and it's going to convert them into a PowerShell object, and that's where we run our function, which then compares the two objects. So I did go ahead and change the name of this function to spell out more that we're comparing PowerShell objects, not necessarily comparing JSON files or CSV files, but first taking those files and converting them into PowerShell objects and then comparing them. So let's take a look at this script. To start out, we've got our parameters taking in the file locations of the first and the second file, and then we're also taking in the ID field. So we're having the script request what the field name is that we're using for ID. What is the unique ID of the files in there? In our test files here, it is user ID, but common ones are just ID or UID, or we could be using first name or first last combo. So whatever it is that is our unique ID, we're having the script ask for that ID field. And that is mandatory, so if we don't specify it, it will ask us for that. And then last here we have the data type, and this is not mandatory, and if you don't specify it, it will default to JSON, but you can specify CSV, and it is validating that, so you can only specify JSON or CSV, which down here we then go and run an if statement to see if that is JSON, in which case we convert the JSON into the PowerShell object. Otherwise, we convert the CSV into a PowerShell object. So then next we have the actual function Compare-MyObjects. And here the parameters are the object1, object2, and a recurse string, which again will default to blank if it's not called. And this is going to allow us to run this function recursively in case we have a multi-tiered JSON file. So first we're grabbing each of the objects in the array of objects, and then we're checking if that recurse is blank. And if it is, we are going to set the compare item to the item that is equal to the ID of our initial item in the object1 array of objects. And if this were being run recursively, we're just going to set compare item to the entire object2. And then we will loop through the fields of the item to be able to compare each one. And we are including the case sensitive compare to see if these are equal or not. And if they are not equal, it's going to check if the recurse is blank and it's that first time that it's being run. And if so, it's going to set the ID variable to the ID field of that item, which is going to allow us to set the ID even if we run this recursively. So then next we'll look at that, and it's going to check if both of the items being compared are PowerShell objects, and if so, it's going to recursively run our function. and pass in those two items, and then set the recurse to this recurse variable plus the name plus a dot. So this potentially could go multi-layers, and it will just keep on adding to the recurse variable so that we know exactly where the difference occurs. And if this is not going to be recursively run, it's just going to create a PowerShell object with the ID, the field that's different, what the original is, and what the change is. And then we've got our catch statement here, just in case something goes wrong and it doesn't identify that second compare item. It's just going to say that there was a field in the first item and there was nothing in the second item. And then we'll close off all of those, and finally we run this function with the original PowerShell objects that we converted up at the top. So hopefully that is helpful. This is an adjustment to that initial script that's going to allow you to recursively compare JSON files no matter how big they are. And then we also added an option in there to be able to compare CSV files. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe if you want to watch more. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.